Today, I'm sitting down with Charlie Hoehn, entrepreneur, best-selling author, and a dad who's faced the pressures and anxieties that come with providing for a family. Charlie openly shares his journey of battling depression as a new father, the surprising breakthrough that saved his marriage, and powerful insights into why prioritizing your relationship with your wife actually makes you a stronger dad. This isn't just another podcast, it is your guide to balancing ambition, family life, and personal well-being, starting right now. I want to get to know you more deeply, and I want to talk about you as a kid for a minute, because in raising kids, I think it's good for us to go back and remember our childhood and what was great about that or what wasn't great about that. And I want to start with a very specific question, which was, as a kid for you, what was your relationship to books or words? At that, at an earlier stage, and I know that we're picking from a number of years, and you can take whatever angle you want here, but I just see you as a little kid, maybe 10 years old, and wondering, is there something there already that you were leaning into, or maybe we can get into where that was cultivated, but tell me about your childhood a little bit.
Man, I love that you started there. I was actually talking to my parents about this recently, because my sister is also, she gravitates toward the language and editing and all that. And I was like, what did you guys do differently?
Yeah.
That caused both of us to lean heavily, gravitate towards books and playing with words.
Yeah.
And they're like, we did what everybody else did. We read you guys books every night. And it's like, well, clearly, maybe not everybody does that. Maybe that's a thing you say you do. I don't know. But I know that I've replicated that with my daughters, and my eldest was the most advanced reader in her grade, and she really takes to it too. So maybe there's something innate, maybe there's not. But I loved books. My parents would read to me every night. I feel like they read multiple books, and I have very clear, fond memories of The Never-Ending Story, reading that, of Redwall, of The Indian in the Cupboard. I think it's a Cricket in Times Square, the Berenstain Bears, those old classics. Where's Waldo?
Yeah.
I just love books. I love that it is the closest thing to magic that I've found, right? Because you can just stare at paper that was created by somebody decades ago, sometimes hundreds of years ago, and hallucinate.
Yeah.
And it's $10, and you get the best of their wisdom, storytelling, whatever, for nothing.
Yeah.
And it's, especially now in today's world where everything's so competing against each other, it's still the one medium that's a product that we hold in such reverence, and you can't really multitask with a book unless you're, I guess, listening to audiobooks. So I guess in terms of early signs, I don't know. I would volunteer to read to kids. I volunteered to work at the library to be the person scanning books.
That's cool.
That allowed me to explore every book and go down, the Guinness Book of World Records rabbit hole and just check everything out in my elementary school's library. And I think the earliest sign that I didn't take as a sign, because it felt so effortless to me, was getting paid by my peers in high school to edit their papers and edit their essays.
Yeah.
It was oh, yeah, sure, it's a piece of cake.
Yeah.
And so I think that would have been the earliest sign. And then it gets more into adulthood. But I loved books. I still will reread, great ones. Harry Potter is just such an incredible series. I adore books.
I don't want to escape your childhood just yet, because I want to
Sure.
stay there for a little bit. But I do want to ask, as it relates to raising kids now, I sometimes, well, I like movies and TV, and I do love books. I've noticed that I want my kids to love books more than they seem to love books right now. But that's because they've been exposed to screens and the TV in a way that I think it's hard to compete maybe with the book now that they have this window into this world of TV. I don't know if that's just they're modeling me. This is just the nature of who they are. Some people gravitate more, maybe more visually. Some people, meaning like with a screen and a storytelling through that medium versus a book. But I'm wondering, like, if you grew up, do you think, as a kid, in today's world where you had access to the amount of screens that are out there, do you think you would have still loved books as much? Or do you think that you were given a gift by growing up in an era maybe where the screens weren't quite as intense? I know they're still around, but I'm looking at it both from you, the angle of you as a kid, but also like raising kids. And do you see something with your children that is a threat? I
Yeah.
think screens are a real challenge, which is why I'm asking.
They can be. So I have a lot of thoughts on this, so I'll try and distill them into as cohesive of a train as I can. So,
And that was a great show, everybody.
right. And what happened? I blacked out. So I think, if a scientist is doing an experiment and he's looking at a cell that's acting weird, the scientist is not like, what is wrong with the cell? It's like, what's wrong with the environment?
Exactly.
And so I think it's an environmental issue. If you want your kids to love reading, just like unplug the TV, take away the screens,
Yep.
and then it's not an option. Just eliminate it completely as an option, which we've done numerous times and just been like, nope, hard no.
Yeah.
But you can, a rule I made with my kids, I was like, you can ask me at any point for a book and I will buy it on the spot. Like, you always have access to books. That is fine. So, I mean, one of my good friends, he grew up in a house that didn't have a TV. He loves reading because that's all he had the option for. So, I also think that, to your point, it is hard to compete with screens, not because of kids' attention spans are getting worse. I think content has just gotten so good.
Yeah.
And our standards of quality have raised. And our standards for rewards for our attention are like, we're being rewarded on certain mediums more rapidly. So reading but it's like, if you're a fitness buff, you're lifting in front of your kids, you're maybe working out with your kids, and they associate it with like a loving parent.
That's right.
And so I kind of associated the act of reading at an early age with like, my parents love me. Like, there are good positive associations here. And so I think there's a level of enthusiasm and love and joy that if you bring to the activity, and it's like, this is so fun for me, then your kids naturally pick up on that. It's just like teachers, in school. My dad loves history because he's like, the professor was great. The teacher was so stoked about it. I hate history because I had teachers who were going through it begrudgingly and just teaching to the text. And so I think a lot of it is energy transference as well.
Yeah, I believe that. That visual of the cell and the environment is just such a important reminder. Yeah, I appreciate that. More on your environment, like how you grew up. I want to talk about the role that your father had. I'd love to talk about, like, in what ways was he an example or a warning for you? And also, I'll bring into that question, by the way, any other father figures, because the spirit of it is I just want to know how fathers and father figures impact kids, specifically your life. What stories do you remember? What values were you taught? What really stood out, and maybe what did you wish for? So lots of avenues that you can pick there, but I'd love to hear a little bit about the influence of your dad.
Yeah, absolutely. So I love my dad. He and I have a great relationship, and so I'll preface with that. My dad, blue collar. He grew up blue collar. His dad was a self-taught engineer. They moved around a lot, and so his dad was also a Marine, and so that was kind of the environment that shaped him. And he had two brothers, and so one of the things that he was very insistent upon was, I don't want to move around all that much, because I think he actually moved his senior year of high school, which
So
I
did I.
cannot. Did you?
So did I.
Well, how
Yeah.
tough was that?
It's pretty tough. Yeah, it's pretty
I was
tough.
like, man, I can't think of a harder year to move. That's the crescendo of the most emotional years, I feel like, in development. So that shaped him, and I think he kind of had a fire lit under him. I don't want to like butcher his personal story or his details, but I'll try to honor them as best as I can as to what I remember. I think someone made a comment to him that probably wasn't in these words, but it registered to him as like, "You're not going to amount to anything, guy." You know. And my dad's 6'6". He was a basketball player. Like he's a smart guy, and that upset him. And you know, he wanted to go the path of becoming a lawyer, and so he got his law degree. I believe he graduated with honors, and like he is an attorney to this day. He's widely respected, like awarded, and you know, he is an attorney in oil and gas, and probably revealing too much personal stuff, I guess. But anyway, so that was my dad's profession, and at home he would come home. The earliest memories I have of him, apart from like vague, you know, like memories of him shaving or something like that, right, is he would come home from work, and he'd be tired but wouldn't show it, you know, because being a lawyer is demanding. And he would occasionally have like a baseball in his suitcase, and we would very frequently, assuming the weather was nice, we would go out into our backyard, play catch. And I had a very idyllic environment. Like I grew up in the suburbs on a cul-de-sac. Our backyard was a green belt with a beautiful view of the Colorado Rockies. Like, and so I have those are like some of my fondest, purest boyhood memories. Was
Did you
playing catch.
think it was idyllic at the time, or
I mean,
now
it's just
upon-
it is what it is. You know, like at the time, it's like this is my life and this is so
Yeah.
fun, and you know, now having kids, I see the demands from kids to like let's play. So I have memories of roughhousing with my dad, and you know, he was great to play with. You know, which is, I think, one of the most important roles a dad has with their kids is you have to play with them. You have to make them adjusted well. And so my dad was also a coach all throughout. You know, I played basketball, but was never great at it. But I was good at baseball. I could throw really hard. And so I became a pitcher fairly early on. And my dad coached me all the way up until high school, when I asked him to respectfully step down, not because of him, but because I didn't want to be picked because he was a part of the staff. Like I didn't want, because I knew there was another kid on, you know, on some level that was like on the team because of that.
Yep.
So I just didn't want political picking. But my dad, you know, he told me he made an intention early on in his career. He was not going to be one of the lawyers who were never at his kids' games. You know, like the movie Hook with Robin Williams, Peter Panning at the beginning is the classic. It's literally a lawyer missing his kids' games and ignoring his kids' demands to play with him.
Yeah.
And so he was very intentional about like always being at games, always being at practices, showing up. And so, yeah, we played all sorts of games growing up. I think they're like whether it was basketball, ping pong, just everything. And so he was a very active dad and present and stable, right? And so he did a great job. And I think as an adult, I became more intentional when I was living out in Colorado to get together with him regularly and kind of get to know him more as an adult, and to be able to relate to him more as now a father, being a dad myself. And so that was such an interesting and
That's
fulfilling evolution of that relationship. And, I think all guys are or most guys are kind of their own worst critic, right? And so they beat themselves up over specific things. And I'm sure you've seen the thing that you feel bad about is something that the other person didn't even register
totally.
on their radar,
Totally.
and vice versa, right?
Yeah,
The
big
thing
time.
you can't even remember is hurtful to them. And so I think we had a conversation at one point where he was asking, we were kind of talking about that, and I said, it's not even a complaint. It was just I wanted you to be around even more. It was just like the act of just being there was enough. It wasn't about. It's not that I needed you to be a coach. It's not that I needed you to show up at games. It was just the act of being together doing stuff, whether, we went camping, we would go up to Estes Park and stuff. We do a lot of things together, but it was I don't have any, my wife's reading a book that she really likes called Mother Hunger that describes a lot of when you say to a woman she's got daddy issues, it's often the opposite. It's mother issues. And so I don't have any father hunger, but I had feelings of I like my dad so much that I wish he was around even more.
That's cool.
So
that's how you felt love was the
yeah,
time.
yeah,
Just him
absolutely.
being present is how you felt the love.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was a strong male figure in my life. And so I wanted, just like any son, wanted to just be around him, observe him, and play with him and learn from him. And I think to your point, asking what were the things that you took that were positive and maybe what were the warnings?
Yeah.
Right. I think, I think my dad was maybe lucked out or is blessed to enjoy his career because a lot of lawyers don't.
Yeah.
And it was an observation I made not just with lawyers but with all professions growing up. Sure. A lot of people just didn't like their jobs. Mm-hmm. And the people I gravitated to the most, the personalities and the creators were people seemed to not be working. They seemed to be playing. And so it was an internalization I remember making very early was I'm going to play for a living. And I don't know what that is, but the things that don't feel like work, the things that I would do for free, regardless, those are going to be the ways that I'm going to make a living, and I'll figure that out at some point. And so, and then, the things I took from him, I've been told I'm a really good coach, and I learned that through observation of him for many years, and just kind of the energy, the cadence, the attention, his techniques and stuff. He's still a coach to this day. He coaches basketball.
Can you think of a specific story there, by the way, of a moment you saw him do something and it really embedded that's what good coaching is? A conversation he had with somebody or a speech he gave or what he didn't say maybe?
I think it was, I observed coaches that yelled and screamed and lost their cool and would be really hard on their kids. Mm-hmm. He was never that way. He was always he would get down on one knee. He would get right in the kid's face and meet them at their level and just be patient, but also expecting high results from them at the same time. And so I think there was the air of respect that he gave to kids that I think made an impact on me. Now, my dad's also Catholic. I have had my issues with the Catholic Church. I am not as forgiving as he is, but I identify as a Christian, and so there were times growing up that, and it wasn't just him. I kind of was like frustrated that I had to go to church,
Yeah.
and just felt like it wasn't in harmony with how I thought a relationship with a higher being might look, and so that there was frustration there, but that kind of I've taken more ownership of that as I've gotten older, and less like
Totally.
all the resentment's gone,
100%.
but it was there for a while.
When you think about wounds from a father, did I hear you say that you don't think that you really experienced a lot of wounds from him in a sense of, I mean, I know you're touching on some of those, like, hey, I wanted more of his time. And
Yeah, I think, I've done a lot of, different modalities of therapy, somatic, chemical assisted talk therapy. And the only stuff that's come up with my dad has been that, where it's like, there's actually been
pretty
some
remarkable,
times,
dude.
yeah, and I think there's a level of sensitivity as a kid.
Hey guys, I want to share something brand new designed for high-performing men like you who want to win at home, not just at work. Our team developed this program over the past 8 years by collecting the best ideas, strategies, and habits from hundreds of men. It's all in one place to give you the best results in the shortest amount of time, because if you're a married man with kids and a business, there is no time to waste. This experience creates deep transformation, not just taking notes and talking about change. It's about doing what matters now so you don't miss the moments when your kids need you the most. These opportunities will come and go very quickly. It's also about building a marriage that shows your kids what real love looks like, creating an environment where they and you thrive. Look, marriage is tough. I've personally walked the line of divorce several times, and without the tools I've gained from this community, I might not be married today. And it's not just about being a great dad or a husband. It's about fulfilling your personal mission, thriving as a man, making an impact through your work, gaining time freedom, financial freedom, traveling the world, and giving to the causes you care about. This program is designed to keep you mentally, physically, and spiritually strong. You do not need to do this alone. Our badass community of intentional fathers are going to help you raise the bar. You're going to learn from each other, hold each other accountable, find your blind spots, and achieve success most dads will never see. It's time to dig deep, gain clarity, and create real change starting now. If you're ready to evolve, visit frontrowdads.com today. We've got limited spots available for this brand new program.
Yeah, so this was one, I suppose, that I didn't touch upon. My dad was working. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. And as I've gotten older and become a dad, my respect for stay-at-home and single moms has skyrocketed through the frickin' roof. It is not an easy gig.
That's right.
And so I'm sure I know there were times that my mom got frustrated with me, and I felt like either my dad wasn't there to, either play a role in some way that I would feel like it would balance things out, be more fair. I got caught having marijuana at the house at one point I think I was in college. I can't remember. It really upset my mom, which I understand now. They dealt with addiction with other family members and seen how hard it was. And so it triggered fear around that, and I can understand that. But my dad was very respectful and even keeled, and was just like, there was no losing his temper. There was no, he's better at that than I am. And it was a very level-headed conversation, and then it just wasn't an issue anymore. And so I think there were times, and I can't like isolate them and tell you this was the story. This is the exact thing that happened. It was just like, I have memories as a kid of feeling overwhelmed and like flooded or whatever you want to call it, where I just feel like I had to just shut down and it would just like wait for the storm to pass.
Yeah.
And so again, it's like stuff that I feel like I used to be angry about, that charge just isn't there anymore.
Yeah. That's really cool, man.
Yeah.
I think about all the things as a dad right now that I have done that could be big wounds.
Sure.
I mean, I've done a lot of good things too as
Yeah.
a dad, but I feel like I have some awareness. I have a short fuse at times, and it's interesting for me to explore that. You know, why? Like, why do I can raise my voice very, very quickly and get very intense? My dad was very similar in that way, so that was definitely modeled for me. But I think I at one point was probably like, I'll never do that to my kids, and then here I go. Like that just shows up for me. So that's one of mine that shows up. Talk about
Hold on.
Yeah.
Do you? I mean, the big thing is like rupture and repair.
That's right.
And so as long as you can yell, but like as long
I've
as
gotten
you
really good at
repair it-
repair.
Yeah.
Gotten
So
good at that.
I think a lot of the parenting advice I see online is all about how do we be like perfect parents, and there's not enough of like the Charlie Munger style of how can you avoid failing as a parent. And if you're continually rupturing and never repairing, that's a failure.
That's right.
But you can rupture a lot. Like, yeah, I'm sure you're familiar with Gottman's, John Gottman
definitely,
stuff, right?
yes.
And so like one of the indicators of a successful marriage is same fighting style. They can be yelling at each other and it's perfectly healthy. But if one fights and the other wants to go away, that becomes problematic, right? So I don't think there's anything necessarily like innately terrible about raising your voice as long as you can acknowledge like, hey, I made a mistake. I'm sorry, I screwed up and repair, and then you're good to go.
So important.
Yeah.
You have girls.
Yeah.
How old are they now?
7, 4, and she was born in July, so it's February. So what's the math on that? 7 months?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. I
Thanks.
love that. How would you?
What about you?
Tiger's 15.
15?
And Ocean is 10.
Wow.
Tiger is getting his permit, and he'll be getting his driver's license this summer, which is wild. And yeah, I was literally talking with, who was I chatting with today? Oh, a contractor was over to the house who I know is a friend of mine, and we're redoing some stuff in our kitchen, and he has young kids. And we were just chatting about how everybody will say it goes by fast. I remember that from a very early on. People like, goes by quick, like take it. I hear it over and over and over again until one day I wake up and I'm like, holy shit, I am the guy telling other people that it goes by fast. Like it happened like that. Like why Tiger's 5'10", almost 5'11", looking me square in the eyes. And it's just wild.
I know.
It's wild to have that all happen.
Right.
I have great joy about I look back at the pictures and I'm like, damn, I was a good dad. Like I'll look back on hundreds, thousands of photographs and I was really there. Like nobody's ever going to question, was Jon there? Because I was there a lot.
So what are like the top 2 or 3 pictures that if you saw them, you're like, those are my proof points?
God, that's a great question, man. You should host a podcast. Nobody's ever asked me that.
Switch seats?
Yeah, this is good. Oh, that's so fun to think about. I'm gonna actually I need to use that question. That's great.
Yeah.
So a couple moments that might encapsulate. If I'm reading the question, let me repeat it back. Like where I know I'm a good dad. Like what would the photograph be?
Yeah. What gives you that feeling when you see it?
Oh man. I'll tell you. I'll answer the question, and I'll actually tell you something that might be useful for you and other people that are listening. But I have a photo album on my desk right now if you walk into my office, and it's got a bunch of pictures of both my boys. I have 3 albums, and my wife. Okay, so I have 3 albums. And on the cover of one of the albums is a picture of Tiger and Ocean in a hotel room playing a game on the floor. And the reason that I have all these pictures in these albums is because I will print a picture and write on the back in a permanent marker something that I see in that child or in my wife that I admire and respect and love, a strength. It is a call out of something I see in them. Very simple. This picture was during the world shutting down in 2019, 2020. I was taking my kids on overnight camping trips downtown to hotels where they were totally vacant, and we were staying in these gorgeous hotels for like $75 a night, giving my wife a break.
That's awesome.
And we would play games and order room service or do whatever we were doing, right? And it was just like me and the boys. And so when I think about that, I think about that. Why that picture feels good is because it was me connecting with the boys, like playing games. I remember saying, no TV, we're going to play games, right? And then giving my wife space. So I was being like great to her and a great support. And honestly, the photo album itself comes to mind as like something I've done that I was very proud of. Capturing the moment, printing it, writing. I think that they'll value that later in life more than maybe anything. Because I always heard about people that wrote journals and they wrote a page a day or a page, whatever it was. And I tried that a couple times and it kind of got away from me. But this version of journaling about their life was like fit me and my style. So that photograph, that method, that's what comes up for me right now.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. And you found the thing that worked for you too.
That's exactly it.
That's so
That's
important.
the biggest part.
Yeah.
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 The one that works for me, because I'm always taking pictures and I am such a visual person, and I'd probably rather write a short note handwritten than like type out a big long page or a big letter or something like that.
Totally. Yeah.
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 So yeah, it's fun to think about, man. I'll hold off on the other ones because I want to get to know you more. You asked me such a good question. It's like, was that an interview about Charlie or Jon? So thank you for that.
You're good.
How about for you, man? Same question. It's such a good one that if there was a photograph that you look at now and say, man, I'm doing dad life great, what would that be?
Well, you made me think of a good buddy of mine. He started a tradition. We all had daughters, so we would do a dad-daughter trip out to Utah. And so we have some fun photos of, just the dads and the girls and like seeing their kind of evolution as little people growing up. One that I look on with a degree of fondness is during the pandemic, my eldest was really into organic bedtime stories. And so I did improv for a couple of years in Austin, so I got to be...
Really?
Yeah, so I got
cool.
to be comfortable in the act of making stories up on the spot.
Yeah.
And anybody can do it, which, by the way, for anybody listening, like, do this. It will blow your kids' hair back, and they will want you to keep doing it. Just as a warning, it might go on for months. You just remember what's called Pixar's story spine, which is once upon a time and every day until one day, and because of that, and because of that, and because of that, until finally, and ever since that day. And so I would just follow that framework each night. And, it started during 2020, I think, or like really ramped up then, where each night it was a new story. I would say, give me an animal. Give me the name. Tell me what they want most. What are they afraid of? Or like what's interesting or unique about them? What's their weakness or whatever? And so we would play around with those variables each night. And so it was like, there were marshmallow dragons, there's just a cat with the longest tail in the world, all these different things. And then she asked for rainbow cheetah named Shimei one night.
Dude, wait, hold on. That's so great. That brings me so much joy. Right? That's so good.
Yeah, our neighbor's dog.
So good,
our
man.
neighbor's dog was named Shimei, and so, so I told this story, and at that point, I kind of had hit an emotional wall with these stories where I'm like, these are just like too soft and stuff, and like I want some action, and so like I started it off with the Shimei like almost dying, like almost immediately being killed by a bear, which geographically makes zero sense, but it's a rainbow cheetah, so what can you say? And she was like, it was the first time when I ended the story, she snapped out of bed and was like, "What happens next?" And woke me up the next morning at 6 a.m. asking me what happens to Shimei. And I was like, "Oh, wow." And so each night I would tell a new chapter, and just to kind of keep that tension and elevated action and momentum up, I just kind of had to keep it extreme. And so it was fascinating, fascinating to watch. And at a certain point, I was like, this will be kind of a cool memory. I'm going to like jot down notes about what I told after I told it. And then I was like, I should use otter.ai. I'll start just transcribing it and, speaking it. Didn't do anything with it. It's just, you kind of just like put it in my back pocket, right? And then ChatGPT came out 3 years later, and I would stay up late at night. Every night I would put the kids and the wife to bed and just play around with it, see what it could do. And I was like, this is interesting. Oh, I was working on a movie script and all this stuff. And then I fed it one of those transcripts and I was like, oh, that's interesting. That's really interesting. If you give it a good transcript and a tight enough constraint in the prompt, it produces something pretty interesting. And so, I've been in publishing for 16 years. The way publishing works is whoever has the idea is the author. It doesn't have to be, the person who writes the words or who gets the book done. Books take a team regardless. And so what I did was I turned it into a book and made my daughter the author. And, we made it into this, like full-length kids book that's, available on Amazon. And
That's so great.
And so
What's it called?
Shimei the Rainbow Cheetah.
That's going in our gift box that people show up to the house here. I got a gift for you. That's getting in there.
Yeah. And it was like such a fun project. And she, I can tell, has like an entrepreneurial bent. And it's not something I forced upon her. And I'm not like, my kids have to go into publishing or anything. But one of the things that was most valuable that I got when I interviewed an author at Scribe when I was working there was it was this woman. She was a CEO, but she was petite. She was blonde. She was kind of bubbly. And she told me this story almost in tears. I asked, how has your life changed after publishing your book? She started tearing up and she said, all the harassment I got from men stopped. Everything, calling me an assistant, demeaning me. It all just came to a screeching halt after I had a book. It acted as like this shield.
Interesting.
Or this elevator that made me equal status and gave me respect.
Yeah.
And so I remember clocking that in my head. I was like, I should probably help my daughters be authors, because I want them to have confidence that they can make things that matter.
Yeah,
and
that makes sense.
So, it's been cool. Like she'll ask me to order copies and she'll give them away, and some people give her money, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, like this is crazy." So, and then my youngest daughter, or I'm sorry, my 4-year-old felt it was, of course, unfair that her older sister had a book, and so we made a book too. Called the Cotton Candy Unicorn.
Okay, there you go. Is it out?
Yeah.
It's out?
We made it in a day.
Okay.
It's easier to make a 4-year-old book than a 7-year-old book, right? And so we made that with Midjourney and Claude.ai.
That's cool. I love that you're creating with your girls in that way, building something. And I think what's true for me is stacking W's. Like win, little confidence boosters and builders, self-esteem. I can do something. I can make something. It just translates. And it makes sense that you're using a skill that you've developed over time. That's awesome, dude.
I try to use the best business skills I've learned in my marriage and family and apply them where I can. And
definitely.
they've helped.
Yeah,
a lot.
Yeah, that's true. Whenever that topic comes up of like applying business skills to your family, I think of a buddy of mine, Isaac, who I remember him saying, God, well, most families will, hold on, let me back up for a second. Most dads who are business owners would spend a lot of time planning out like a team retreat, a team meeting, a team dinner. He might come up with some prompts and some questions, but he'll just show up to the dinner table and be like, what's up, everybody? Like, how was your day? Like very little intention. And he thought, what if I treated our dinner table like I treated a boardroom meeting? And not with the seriousness and the agenda per se, but just with the intentionality and bringing some of those skills to the dinner table, the questions, the facilitation, that, so on and so forth. So I love when skills translate to being a great dad. I have a question about advice that you got. I'm imagining you got some advice, as you entered fatherhood, or you have over the last years, that's turned out to be true. You're like, I was told this, and now that I'm a dad with kids, this is true. And you think of like truthful dad advice that's played itself out in your life?
Well, what comes to mind for you? Maybe that can kind of get my wheels turning.
Yeah. So I'll bring Grant into this since we were talking about just having lunch with him a couple hours ago. And I was telling Grant that I've interviewed a lot of people now about fatherhood, from young dads to grandfathers, like people in their 70s and 80s. And when I've noticed that the amount of advice, the length of the advice gets shorter and shorter and shorter the older they get.
Right.
You think it would be more.
Yes.
Well, in my 80 years,
Simpler.
I've developed a list of 182 things you need to do as a dad to be great. But it's usually like,
Smile.
just love them.
Right, yeah.
It's like, and Grant was like, yeah, it's like marriage. I'll sometimes ask somebody who's been married for 52 years, what's your advice on a great marriage? And it's not like read these 18 books, and do these 22 things each day. It's like, just forgive them. See the good in them.
Yeah.
Right? It's something super simple. And what I think feels true to me now is that advice of just love them, said in a variety of ways, but the spirit of that, just love them, has in fact been the most valuable advice. Because there is a part of me, a version of Jon Vroman, that wants to control the shit out of everything. I want to control lots of things. And I realize now this is all protecting childhood wounds and not enoughness and all the things, right? But when I realize that there is a true spirit of a child, and now I see this having, been in the dad space for so long, it's like a mom and a dad will raise 4 children. They all were brought up in the same house, the same mom and dad, and they're wildly different. And so the spirit of a child, the soul of a human, they're going to be who they're going to be, all in the vein of just love them, right? Be there, which is kind of the concept of being a front row dad, front row of like, I'm present, I'm engaged, I'm in the front row of your life. That's the concept. Being there and being present, maybe more than anything. So it's simple advice. Just love them, but that's the one that's been true.
I love that. That's a great answer.
Yeah. What do you think?
So to the point of short advice, the best short advice I heard was try. And so like I think it was from a guy who was studying successful marriages, long-term marriages. And that was advice that I did get, which was you have to put yours and your wife's relationship first.
Yeah.
And try, right? Because I think that was the hardest adjustment I had initially. Was the story I was telling myself was like, I'm closing all these doors. When you get married, you have kids, I'm closing these doors. I thought I was making momentum in my career, and now the story is that comes to a halt, and now I have to sacrifice a part of myself or whatever. It was totally a story and BS, but like it was the story I believed. And so I had a hard time kind of like making that full shift and tilting full into like, try it. Like, this is your reality. Own it. Make the best of it. I still felt like, I almost had to grieve the loss of these other possibilities,
Big
right?
time grief, yeah.
And so, but I have found unquestionably, the more that I lean into my relationship with my wife, trying with my kids, and coming from a place of earnestness, asking higher power for help and helping us create the best possible life that we can, and moving forward in faith as though it's inevitable. Every year has gotten better, but like we had to go kind of through this trial by fire that I look back and I'm like, how much suffering was I creating for myself and then others? And then this was actually maybe the most critical thing for my entire family. Before I met my wife, this has been the case for well over a decade. I was diagnosed a few times with dysthymia, which is like low-grade depression. It's like just a persistent cloud. It's not like I'm in the abyss. My life is in order. No one knows. It's just kind of this lingering thing that just kind of trails, right? And so those changes, though, brought me down to like full grade, depression. And I'd always been able to kind of just manage it with lifestyle, right? Exercise, you get enough sleep, sunlight, friends, etc. Like I know the drill to manage.
Totally.
But I was going through a real rough patch, and I happened to come across this old Jordan Peterson video where he's talking about antidepressants. And he's like, everyone just assumes all these people are on these things. And he's like, it takes me 2 years to get a client to even entertain the idea of taking these things because they deal with so much guilt and shame. They're worried it's going to have all these negative repercussions. And meanwhile, it is catastrophic to their family, and it rips families apart. And so I have to just plead with them, just try it. Try it for a month. See what happens. If it doesn't work, you're right back to where you were.
Right.
But maybe it is the life raft that you need to kind of just get yourself straight.
Yeah.
And it was like it hit every single objection of mine to antidepressants. And then one of my good friends is a therapist, and I was like, all right, which of these things are like safe? Which ones are going to have the least effects? Is this right? And he was like, dude, Wellbutrin is like, I see almost no negative side effects with that. He was like, I would totally encourage you to give it a shot. And it was like totally transformative. It like saved our family. Wow. It was a real fork in the road where things, if they'd continued, I don't know if we could have made it. And, like I've tried all the alternative stuff that everybody is gung-ho on to, with the exception of like ayahuasca, because I don't want to fry my brain and like meet God right now. But I've tried all that stuff. And I think people are really drawn to the kind of allure and the intensity of it. But like nothing helped me more.
Wow.
Nothing helped my family more than me stabilizing and preventing me from going into the abyss, preventing me from self-ruminating, throwing pity parties for myself. It just like snapped me out of it with no negative side effects whatsoever.
Yeah.
So it was really helpful for me. I know pharmaceutical companies get a lot of bad press, but like, it saved my family. I attribute it to that.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm super happy to hear that.
Thanks.
For you and for your family. Just want that to be the first thing out of my mouth is like, I'm thrilled for you. Yeah. There's a couple of things I want to reflect that I heard. One is when you made the decision to do that, it sounds to me like you had to, in a way, kind of surrender to something new. Mm-hmm. Like maybe you were really carefully testing the waters, but then you had to like take a chance. You had to try, right? In order to know. That's one thing I want to reflect is the courage that it takes to try something, especially if you've heard reasons not to do it,
right?
To still lean in and to get advice and then do that. I also want to say that that there's a version of Jon that always wants to go natural, like for sure. Yeah. And also that I don't know what it's like for somebody to go down that path. I've never done that. So I have ignorance around it. And so I'm just saying that out loud because, I think I don't have any judgment about that, but I think that what comes across to me is like the intentionality that you have around it, and that you can also celebrate the truth of something that really helped you. So I want to honor that.
Thanks, man.
All my way of saying I honor you, and I'm so happy that you're in a great place right now.
Thanks.
It's really, really cool.
Yeah, I appreciate it, and I share it because I know how difficult it is to.
Totally.
Because I'm the same way, where it's like I can handle this naturally. Dude, I wrote a book that helped a bunch of people deal with their anxiety naturally,
Exactly,
and
exactly.
it works. And but like I tried for years to like manage this, and then all of a sudden it's no longer I was never suicidal. You got to understand, but like it was. It's just low grade depression. And then all of a sudden, the risk reward completely flipped when I have multiple mouths to feed and people to care for that I'm on a lifelong journey with. It's not just about me anymore.
Yep.
And so it was like, I need to stop being proud about this and recognize like who I'm doing this for.
Yeah.
It is not for me.
Is it a long-term solution? Like once you're on it, you're kind of like testosterone. Like once you're on it, you kind of stay on it, or do you
I don't
cycle
think
on and
so.
off? Or
It's like now I'll go days without taking it and it don't really doesn't really affect. So like I feel like I went through a phase where just finances were really tough.
Yeah.
And so like I felt a ton of pressure when we had our first kid. I shut down my business and took a job because I was like, I need to provide health insurance and I can't put my family through the valleys of entrepreneurship. There's not a steady enough influx of cash flow here to inspire confidence.
Yeah.
Right. And so I need to know how much I'm bringing in each month. And like, it's hard with jobs, right? Because you're also putting a ceiling on how much you make each month. And so, and like, economic factors, obviously, we went through some challenging times, still are, right? And so I remember there was this moment where I like snapped on my wife because I found floss in the shower, which meant she was doing oral care in the shower and wasting water. Like that's how stressed out I was.
Yeah, I get that.
Which is ridiculous, right? But like that's how I felt. And so being the sole provider for years on end is a type of pressure that I think only men who've been in that position can fully appreciate and understand, right?
I can so relate.
Yeah, like there's that meme of, the woman and the man in bed, and she's like, he's probably thinking about another woman, and he's like, how am I going to feed my
Yes.
And so, and like we had credit card debt, student loans, and I managed to pay all those off, but like, it was a ride, and it was stressful. So, I'm glad I'm through the trial by fire, but it was tough.
2008, I leave my job with Cutco Knives. I'm an executive. I'm making six figures. I'm going to go be a speaker. Going to go be an entrepreneur. That year, within a period of 2 years, I'll say, right? In a period of 2 years, I leave that job. I spend all of our savings, our retirement money, basically, right? I go into debt, $85,000 on a credit card. I have two homes. I have a squatter in my home in New Jersey that's not paying me rent. I've spent all my money trying to be a speaker, trying to get paid to do this speaking job. I have a 1-year-old. I've just gotten married, right? And I have this picture of me sitting on the couch holding my 1-year-old, and I'm just barely keeping it together, man. I am barely keeping it together. And it is like the plane is going down. I remember I was trying to get to be a college speaker, right? And I went to the post office and I had mailed 3,000 brochures, like to try to get gigs. That's what I did. I was trying. And then a guy who I'd been trying to get advice from called me on my way home from the post office, and he's like, all right, I'll help you get your speaking business going. Whatever you do, don't mail brochures. And I'm like, dude, I just spent our family's last money on a Hail Mary brochure mailing deal. The crazy part was, though, that I went from like literally minutes away from crashing it all to the ground to I won College Speaker of the Year. That like I figured it out basically just by the skin of my teeth, right? I won College Speaker of the Year. I made $100,000 that year. I made $200,000 the next year. It eventually all turned around. But dude, there were some dark, dark days. And I remember one day, I don't know if I've ever said this, but I was like, one day I walked down from my office and I walked past the liquor cabinet, dude, and it was like noon. And I remember taking a shot of vodka, right, at noon on a Tuesday or whatever, and then chewing some gum so my wife wouldn't. And I was like, this is my life right now, right? This is my life right now. And meanwhile, I'm trying to become a college speaker and like motivate people. So meanwhile,
Like I'm trying to understand my audience.
Dude, I say that because somebody listening to this, we have a lot of different, we have a wide-ranging demographic of the Front Row Dads. A lot are hard-charging, very successful guys with lots of money and lots of success. But I know there's also younger entrepreneurs and guys that are just starting families, and like they can relate to the dark days.
Oh, yeah.
I love what we're talking about that because
dude.
it's part of the journey.
Yeah, the trial by fire. I mean, it is a gift in a lot of ways because it provides the contrast when you do have the breakthrough.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, it's tough. And I remember hearing a story that actually I loved, and I don't know the guy's name, but I just really loved this story. I've told it a few times. He said, I was early on entrepreneur. My fiance was pregnant. We're living in an apartment. I have no money coming in, none. And we have debt. We have to pay bills related to the pregnancy and all. Like literally don't have any money for food. And I'm trying to feed my pregnant fiance. And I called my dad and I was like, Dad, I've like hat in hand, can you please just help me with like 1 month's rent? And groceries. Like that's, I just need help. And his dad said, I'm sorry, son. I'm not going to deprive you of the opportunity for you to find out what you're made of. And the guy told this and he was like crying. He was like, it was the greatest thing anybody's ever said to me.
Wow.
Because he was right. Like it forced me to like step up and figure out an alternative path. Because like so often that's the case in business where it's like you're facing death and the hero's journey is to face death and overcome. And so you do have a path. You're just not going to be able to solve it doing what you've been doing.
That's exactly right.
You have to come up with something else. And so and he had a breakthrough.
Dude, tough love.
Yeah.
In so many ways, there's so many. Yeah, when you share, it's reminding me of all these truths in my life. And one of them was right around that time, I must have reached out to my dad for something, right? In this state that I was just describing to you. And my dad said, son, he goes, I learned this from your Uncle John, his brother. He said, nothing is more motivating to a man than opening his cabinet and seeing no food in it. You've got this. Dude, it's like, that was the counsel. Yeah. And he's right. You want to move somebody into action. It's like, open your cabinet, see no food. And especially with a woman that you want to provide for, a child, like, dude, I got some stuff done. I figured it out. I got very resourceful.
Yeah.
So
women are, our wives are attracted to us for our potential, right? Not what we bring to the table right this second, but our potential. And so like she sees that in you, you can see it in yourself too.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love now being 49 years old, being with her for 18 years, having a 15-year-old and a 10-year-old and a 7-figure business that I feel is all like a purposeful, thriving business. It makes me so happy to know that I went through some of those dark days. I feel like I do appreciate where we are now a lot more as a result of that. I wouldn't trade any of that. Those were hard days. I don't necessarily want to go back and repeat them. Glad we made it through that season. But like, dude, that gave me a lot of perspective.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you learn the lessons that allow you to get out and stay out, hopefully.
Yes. Yeah. What do we want to talk about that we haven't talked about?
Gosh, I don't know.
I didn't even check with you, by the way, before we started recording. Far as time, it's like this has been going by so fast. And it's so easy.
I'm good.
But just tell me, what do you care about right now? What's come up for you in this conversation, or not come up in this conversation that would be important to either double down on, or start a conversation on that relates to fatherhood? So I'm kind of like, I've covered some of the things that I've really wanted to get into with you today, and I could ask you questions about book writing for another hour. Sure. I'm super curious about that. I know you have a lot to offer there, but I also just wanted to take a minute and just open up and say, hey man, parenting, marriage, family, life, spirituality, like we're kind of dabbling in all these categories, but is there anything else that's really important to you that you want to have a voice around, or have a conversation around, or explore, that we can chat on? And it's okay if the answer is no, but I at least wanted to give you the space.
Thanks, man. That's I really like that. It's like a blank canvas.
Yeah.
I'm only as wise, I think, as the mistakes I've personally made. And I think the stuff that I've appreciated as I've come along the journey more has been more about, you don't need to be perfect. You just need to not be a failure, right? And so, like, that, it's what I mentioned, the Charlie Munger philosophy is to invert. Don't fixate on success. Find out what causes failure, and then avoid those things, right? And so a big part of it has been just being aware of those things and recognizing, like, that is actually success.
Yeah.
Right. And so I personally am very hard on myself. My dad would say, like, coaches would always go easy on you because they could see that you were beating yourself up, and you didn't need any help on that. Right. Yeah. So I think that was a struggle for a while, and feeling like I'm like never doing enough. But in reality, one of the things that really changed my life was having a group of peers who'd known me for years tell me what my strengths were, and not me tell them what my strengths were. And it totally changed how I realized, like, people don't value me for the things I thought they did.
Oh, yeah. What'd they say? What were your strengths?
Kind. Feels like an older brother. A great coach. Deeply caring. It was these things that are just my essence that I take for granted, right? And that I'm never like, this person likes me because of this. It's like I had a different script. And so I think that would be the thing, is like, your essence, your goodness is enough, right? And that's what, like, your kids love. And your essence and your goodness is brought out most easily through play, in my opinion. If you don't have any emotional blocks around play, some people do, but, like, I've beaten on the drum of the importance of play for many years. I stand by that. I think it's the fathers, one of their primary roles, and it's one of the few things that they're uniquely and only capable of, is playing with their kids. And so, when in doubt, play with your kids.
That's cool. What are you looking forward to playing this year? How will you play this year?
So my goal this year is to do something I've never done, which is to take a month vacation away from my business and let it run itself, and to just have as much fun as possible with my kids. So going on vacation, and my kids and my wife, my family. And so going on that vacation, that trip, and just, like, mentally and emotionally letting that go, and just having those memories. I'm really looking forward to that. That's going to be a huge personal milestone to have achieved that before 40. That's, like, a big deal for me.
That's huge, man.
Yeah.
I love that.
Thank you. What about you?
Oh, how am I going to play? I mean, in the same line of, like, taking time off, I take time off every July, right? And into August. And I do that because, do you know Mike Michalowicz?
Yes, he's actually the person. Like, I've never met him, but I've read his book.
This
And
idea,
he was the person who inspired that.
dude.
Yeah.
So in a conversation with him on this show, I remember him saying, "Don't take a vacation from your business. Give your business a vacation from you."
Yeah.
And this idea of this 4-week cycle. So I did it. I heard that and I did it for the first time, and it was remarkable. And in fact, some cool things that came of that. One was, I was like, how am I going to do the show? I want to continue to put out shows. I asked some of our front row dads, would you interview other epic dads? Hal interviewed Mickey Willis. Brad Johnson interviewed Michael Hyatt. Like, we had these really great conversations that I remember I was in Switzerland. I was literally like going to take a hike and I saw like a notification pop up and it's like, Michael Hyatt's show just dropped with Brad Johnson. I'm like, I'm on vacation with my family in Switzerland and a show is dropping and this is like so good. And
Right.
all praise to Michalowicz for inspiring that.
Yes. Yeah.
that's
I want to thank him personally
Yeah.
for that. It's a wonderful, wonderful goal and idea.
Yeah, it's life-changing. And I think that what that does is that also creates real stability for your business, because if you
Yes.
can bow out for 4 weeks, like Mike talks about, like that's a good litmus test that you've got something that's operational and doesn't, it's not going to all fall apart the second you step away. That's real stability for your family and the families of those that you're connected to your business. All of that's really good. So, yes,
And
man,
empowering to your team, too.
big time.
Because sometimes you don't even realize, like, you're the literal bottleneck or, like, the psychological
Yes,
bottleneck.
that's it.
And
That's it. That's
yeah.
it, man. The psychological bottleneck.
Yeah.
That's a big one. Yeah. Oh, I got so many stories on that one. So yes, man, we're gonna go to Nice this summer to our favorite family. We're gonna go play, and our kids get along, and we're gonna go get a house there and chill. And so,
That's awesome.
the beaches of Nice. We did it before. I have this picture. Talk about like great pictures that you're winning as dad. Ocean, who was 9 at the time, it was midnight. And we were all going to bed in our Airbnb in Nice. And he goes, I want to go to the beach.
Right.
I'm like,
Yeah.
it's midnight, in the southern coast of France. I go, let's go, dude. So we got out of bed and we literally walked to the beach, and it is a full-on party. Like, there is people playing volleyball, there's music. It's like, it's Nice. And we go down to the beach and he is just giggling. He thinks this is the coolest thing because it's midnight and we're at the beach and they're all adults. There's 0 kids around.
Yeah.
And then we sit on the beach and we realize that people are skinny dipping. And he goes, Dad, look at the butts. Look at the butts. So, dude, I will never forget that. I have
Yeah.
the photograph of it, and it's like, so unique place to play in life, but I'll say that as like a closing point for myself, that to anybody listening, I have made some decisions as a dad that were in the moment uncomfortable decisions. Getting out of bed was not comfortable for me, but I'm glad I did in the spirit of play. And that became like one of the highlight moments of the trip that I easily could have forgotten about. And when Levesque and I talk about this possible book that we were working on, he brought the idea of windows. That fatherhood is a lot about like windows opening and closing, and like the moment's there and you can either seize the moment or you don't, right? And they're kind of coming and going, and some of them you'll get and some of them you won't. But if you look at it like, hey, I have consciousness around these windows. I have a window of time with my child, and that window will close. Now, you'll always be a dad. You can always come back and repair. You can always lean into a different season. Your best work is still ahead of you, perhaps. Like, all those are true statements. And so is the fact that it is a window. Mm-hmm. They will only be 5 once. They will only be 10 once. You only have so many firsts. And that's something I'd like to write about too, is like embracing the firsts. The first time they ride a bike, the first time they, whatever it is, and trying to be present for those firsts. I think that's a big, big win as a dad and a thing I want to do. So, yeah, man, experience some firsts this year is what I'm excited
love that.
about.
Yeah. I don't want to steal the spotlight on that. That's a great end. I'll just share that my daughter, my eldest, her first time at the beach at 6 a.m. when no one was there on Coronado Island is one of the happiest times I've seen her as well. So there is something magical about that.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be fun to figure out the recipe behind those magic moments. I love that.
There's just an age where like a first of a thrilling environment is so exciting.
It's a big, big thing.
Yeah.
Let's end on the future then. Let's talk for a moment about, cast a vision 10, 20, 30 years. It doesn't matter, but when you look like a good ways down the road, what do you hope your life looks like, man? What do you hope to have crafted for your family and for your life? Talk to me about the future and how you see that and what you're trying to call in for yourself.
So this goes to like doing so it's a hard question to answer because my wife and I have recently been talking about should we explore homeschooling. Our girls have been going to Montessori and these are precious years. At the same time, like we just experienced basically 6 weeks off and on of the flu. So we're like, I don't know if we can handle the demands of energy to be our best. And similarly, at what point do we stop having kids where the quality of our parenting stays high and doesn't put the responsibility on any of our other kids to like pick up our slack and our responsibilities, And so, but all to say, like, I've kind of just trusted that things work out with my wife. She's guided our family on the journey. As long as I take care of them, things have been good.
Yeah.
And so I know business-wise exactly where we're going, but family has always just been like, let's see. Like things just keep getting better with each kid and our lives just keep improving. This is quite nice. And so just continue expanding and following with faith. So I don't necessarily have a vision in terms of the family because our lives feel so idyllic. Like we literally say to each other, like, I can't believe this is our life consistently. So,
that's so good.
It feels like holding the current reality as well as we can and being present for it is kind of the vision in a lot of ways, if that makes sense.
Feels like a good book title. I can't believe this is my life.
Right. Yeah.
It's fun. Although I should not be picking book titles for the record. I think everything makes a good book title or a T-shirt. Every time I hear something, I'm like, that'd make a great T-shirt, That's a great... I think in book titles and T-shirts. I don't know why. This is a weird thing about me. Yeah. I should have had like a T-shirt company and turn all these phrases into shirts. I love that for you, man. I love kind of living into the mystery of that. And I love that what I also want to honor about you and what I experience in you is that I think you really are appreciating this season of life for you, man. And God, of all the things a person could say that just make me happy for them, when somebody's like, I look around and I'm like, I can't believe this is my life. Dude.
Yeah.
That hits the sweet spot.
Right. Yeah. It's like there's no additional money that could come in that would change things. So it's like I feel like I'm there. Yeah. And to say something else would just be kind of like, I'm just really blessed right now. And so I'm just very content and at peace with it.
Yeah. And to say to anybody who's out there and experiencing whatever season they're in, right? Like, because some people still might be in that dark season and the undertones and the shadows that are really that feel like anchors in their life. I want to recognize the full range of your life, and that also how you've earned that. Because of what you've been through and what you've gone through. I also want to say, man, that I'm so grateful that we had this time today because I hear your name all the time. We're here in the same city. We don't get a chance to see each other. We did go climbing.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Of course, yeah.
Very early on. That was awesome. And I loved that experience. And I knew that, I was like, God, I really appreciated being around you and would continue to welcome those times. But if no other time presents itself for us or we don't make time, I just want to tell you this was awesome, man. Getting to know your life, getting to know your heart, and all the things, including what you're up to with business. It's just really, really powerful. So,
well, thank you, man. I really respect and appreciate you for inviting me on. Like, I'm humbled, and also it was like a real gift to talk about stuff that I never ever talk about on podcasts, which is like substantive, real life things.
Yeah.
And so, which is not to say others are not, but like, you listen to a lot of podcasts and it feels like, yeah, this is the same, more stuff, but like, this was great. So thank you.
yeah, awesome, man. Well, thanks for being here, brother, and I hope we do this again.
Likewise.
All right, man.
Thanks for listening today, fellas. If you got value from this episode, I ask that you take 1 second right now and you share this with another dad in your life that you respect, that you know is committed to becoming a better man, family man, and businessman. And on that note, I want to honor you for choosing growth. Your family will thank you years from now for all the effort that you're putting in to learn the strategies so you can show up more fully for them today. Take care.